The $83.3 million verdict against Donald Trump is the latest in a series of huge civil judgments in the former president's circle. In December, his former attorney, Rudy Giuliani, was hit with a $148 million penalty after a jury found that he defamed two Atlanta election workers. In fact, just today, in U.S. bankruptcy court in the Southern District of New York, Giuliani listed more than $10.6 million in assets and nearly $153 million in liabilities, and a monthly net income of just $2,308. Rudy Giuliani may never be able to pay the full judgment against him, but what about Donald Trump, who has repeatedly claimed that he's a billionaire? That could have been a factor in today's massive judgment after the jury in E. Jean Carroll's civil suit heard portions of an April 2023 deposition in New York Attorney General Letitia James's civil fraud suit against Trump. Here's what he told the AG's team about his vast wealth.
I don't need the money. You probably see the cash. We have a lot of cash. I believe we have substantially in excess of $400 million cash, which is a lot for a developer. Developers usually don't have cash. They have assets, not cash. But we have, I believe, 400 plus and going up very substantially every month. My biggest expense is probably legal fees. But fortunately, that's okay. But we have a lot of cash, we have great assets, and we have a very valuable company.
Joining us now is the New York Times Pulitzer Prize-winning investigative reporter Suzanne Craig, who I think knows more about Donald Trump's finances than any walking, living, breathing person. Suzanne, good to see you. Let's talk about this. This is a big judgment, and this isn't actually the one that Donald Trump is most worried about, because it's the civil New York case that he's really worried about, because the Attorney General is asking for numbers that are much larger than this. So tell me what you make of that, what you make of this judgment combined with what may happen in the coming weeks in the other case.
Right, because we've got the New York Attorney General's civil case coming down, and that could hit up to $370 million. And when you think about, so he's got some real numbers here. Not a lot of people are walking around with that much cash. I think including Donald Trump, he said in that deposition he had $400 million, and that was in April of 2023. And I'm going to say, take that right or wrong, just with a grain of salt. Donald Trump is not known to be truthful about his finances, about his net worth.
Right.
But we do know, and it's interesting, some things from the New York Attorney General's cases. There were a lot of pieces of information about his cash position that I was listening for when I was sitting through that case. And one of them, it was interesting, he started in 2014, the New York Attorney General had stated in the closing arguments in that case that he had around $278 million in cash and unencumbered cash. There was a little bit more of cash that he couldn't get a hold of, but that's what he had in 2014. He spent a ton of money on renovating some of his properties, including the old post office, golf course down in Florida, another one overseas. By the time he entered the White House, Allen Weisselberg, his now former chief financial officer, wrote him a memo and said, you've basically got, I think it was an unencumbered cash, about $38 million, which was considered, I think, a cash crunch for him. And you're also looking at the same time, there was exhibits entered that shows he's got negative cash flow. He's got, more cash going out than coming in. So it was looking really tight for him. But then two things happened. He sold the lease, the control that he had of the old post office hotel in Washington, D.C., and he got a $131 million distribution from that sale. And then separately, he sold Ferry Point. It's a golf course in New York that he had an operating agreement on, and he got, I think, roughly about $60 million. So it's hard to say exactly how much he has in the bank account right now, but those two sales, I think, definitely put him in a better position. But now he's got to put the $85 million isn't something that he's got to sort out down the road. He's got to get a bond together if he's going to appeal this, and he could put up collateral for the bond and some money, but that's a real thing. And the $5 million, we talked about the $5 million that he'd already been ordered to pay E. Jean Carroll. Tonight on Chris Hayes, a lawyer for E. Jean Carroll said that money has already been put in an escrow account by Donald Trump because he's appealing that as well. So I think the one tonight looks like he can probably I think very reluctantly he's going to have to, but he's got enough money there. But this civil case that's coming down on Tuesday is going to be a real blow to him, and we're going to be looking at asset sales.
So I was trying to follow your math, and that gets me into the 200 million-ish range versus the 400 million that he talked about last April. But if you add up today's judgment and what Letitia James is looking for in the New York civil fraud case, you're in the $450 million range. Now, you know, what happens to a guy like Donald Trump? Because he does have assets beyond his cash. So he can, you know, bankruptcy is for people who there's no way their assets are going to match their liabilities. What ends up, what's the worst case scenario for Donald Trump? Does he start liquidating things?
He starts liquidating. You're absolutely right. And in the case of the Attorney General, if that is a large verdict, no matter what, even if it's small or large, there's a monitor over his businesses right now, and they're monitoring them to make sure, first of all, that he doesn't sell them out, you know, while this is going on. And the receiver in New York also wants to make sure that the assets are functioning, that they're you know, producing money, and that they're doing what they should be, so that if there is an asset sale, that they're valuable when they're sold. But he's definitely looking at having to make some decisions at some point if, as we expect, the New York Attorney General's case comes in. I would imagine it's going to come in excess of $300 million, and that's going to be possibly as early as Monday, Tuesday.
Donald Trump has a source of money for these things that most people don't have. He goes out and campaigns. He goes out and asks people to fund his legal bills, and many people gladly pay that. So there's that other pool that he could, I'm sure he's doing it tonight. He's probably out there trying to raise money to pay for these things.
Well, it's interesting, and I've been sort of going back in my memory on civil fines. You can have your legal fees paid for. I don't think you can have a verdict like this, a penalty like this, a fine where you can have, you know, your donors pay for it. This is something that he's got to pony up, as far as I know, and I'm still sort of trying to gather information on that tonight. But I remember when I covered Wall Street, you couldn't just have somebody else write the check for you. That was against the rules in New York. He's got to do it, and it would suggest the fact that he's put the money in escrow for E. Jean Carroll and that's been secured, that would suggest that that's the case. But his legal fees are certainly something that's fair game for donors to help him pay, and they are.